Take care of himself. Look at his ankle.
Yeah, well, we thought if her came back sick, we'd just put her right next to Lynn.
Good evening, everyone. If we could call this
Good luck
group to
with
order.
that. Good luck with that.
We'll start with the opening ceremonies. Dan, will you start with the invocation, please?
Our dear God, we love you and we thank you for your love for us. We send a prayer out tonight for our fearless leader, Commissioner Herb Lemkool, who's successfully recovering from surgery. We know that all good things come from you, God, and that you desire that your children prosper and be in good health. So we ask tonight that you put your hand on him right now and bring him back to perfect health. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Bonnie, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Rennie?
Present.
Inman?
Here.
Thomas?
Yep.
Max Bauer?
Here.
Lathrop?
Yeah.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
And Lemkool is excused.
Okay, the next order of business will be the approval of the minutes of the August 27th regular session.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Rennie, supported by Max Bauer. Further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. The September 3rd special board meeting minutes.
Same.
Motion by Rennie, supported by Max Bauer. Further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. This brings us to the first opportunity for public comment. Bonnie, if you would read the rules, please.
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners which is required to be open to the public under the provision of the Michigan Open Meetings Act as amended. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. A, any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. B, no person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. Chairperson may, at his or her discretion, extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak.
Having heard the rules for public comment, is there anyone wishing to make public comment at this time?
I'm Deborah Nesbitt, and it's 400 West Beach Bark Trail, Maple City, Michigan, 49664. I just want it known that we have a representative committee for Kids Cove here. It's my understanding that the playground was shut today due to increased arsenic levels, and so if there was any comment, I just want you to know that there is some representation here tonight.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we will move on. We have a second opportunity later in the meeting, and we do take public comment during the course of particular agenda items as discussion is going on. Next would be the approval of the agenda. David, do you have
Mr.
any?
Chairman,
We'd like to do the minutes.
It is minutes.
We did the minutes. Both sets.
Form.
Both sets.
Okay.
Just got to approve
You guys are
it.
going too fast for me.
you're used to Herb running the meeting. That's
Do we have any additions to add to the agenda this evening, David?
No, we do not.
And do any commissioners have anything to add? I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as provided.
so moved.
Support.
Motion by Max Bauer, supported by Thomas. Further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Brings us to the consent calendar. Bonnie, if you would, please.
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file, or approval, is approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. A, receive and file. Number 1, Northwest Michigan Community Action Agency Incorporated minutes, May 15th. Number 2, Department of Veterans Services minutes, June 19th. Number 3, Northwest Michigan Community Action Agency Incorporated minutes, June 19th. Number 4, Traverse Area District Library minutes, June 19th. Number 5, Collaborative Meeting minutes, June 26th. Number 6, Northern Michigan Substance Abuse Services Incorporated minutes, July 7th. Number 7, Board of Public Works minutes, July 10th. Number 8, Grand Traverse County Central Dispatch Policy Board minutes, August 14th. Number 9, Board of Public Works minutes, August 14th. Number 10, Grand Traverse County Planning Commission minutes, August 19th. Number 11, Department of Veteran Services minutes, August 21st. Number 12, Northern Lakes Community Mental Health minutes, August 21st. Approvals. The Public Health and Safety Committee recommends approval of the following. Number 13, Mental Health Services Agreement with Pine Rest. Number 14, Acceptance of Health Department's 2013 Annual Report. Number 15, Veterans Affairs Memorandum of Understanding. The Resource Management Administration Committee recommends approval of the following. Number 16, Mental Health Court Grant Funding 86th District Court. Number 17, Parks and Recreation Department Open Positions. Number 18, Commissioner Appointment to the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee. Number 19, Amendment to Resolution 104, 2014 to create a Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee. The Ways and Means Committee recommends approval of the following. Number 20, 2014 Phone System Maintenance Contract. Number 21, Budget Adjustments.
Having heard the consent calendar, is there anyone in the audience wishing to have any item removed? Is there any commissioners wishing to have items? Charlie?
A6.
A6? Yep. That would be the IMSAS report. Are any other items? I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar with the exception of A6.
I have a motion by Inman, supported by Thomas. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
A roll call on that.
Mr. Cooney tells me I don't have to have a roll call vote for consent calendar. Is that correct?
There's no rule that you have to.
It says we do not have to, and our board rules don't say we have to.
It's a habit
You
that
can,
we've
but we
always
don't have
had, but
All those in favor say aye.
aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Moving forward, special orders of business. David, was John going to be here to talk about this county citizen participation plan?
No, actually, but I can probably handle that.
We're to hold a public hearing in regard to the Grand Traverse County Citizen Participation Plan.
That's correct.
For commissioners and the audience. This was brought to us by our planning department, and John Syke has talked to us about it several times, but we were required to hold a public hearing, and tonight is the message for that. So David, if you will outline that, I would take this opportunity to open the public hearing, and then if you would outline the program, please.
Okay, this is a requirement of the Community Development Block Grant. We have a requirement when we use our, I believe this is a revolving loan fund, and it's all made up of federal funds. And in order to utilize those funds, we have to hold a public hearing. It's not the Board of Commissioners' job in this regard to approve it. All we have to do is hold a public hearing to fulfill the requirements of the CDBG. So we are here to hear comments on the citizen participation plan that's in your packet. And once the hearing is closed, we've fulfilled our obligation.
Well, we do have a resolution in the packet to pass on page 67. So, you know, this time, if I could, I think what I'd like to do is read the resolution, the whereases as part of the outline to the public, and then we will take public comment as we can, and then we'll bring it back to the board for further questions. The resolution reads, whereas the Ways and Means Committee met in regular session on September 17, 2014, and reviewed requests by the Director of Planning and Development to approve the Grand Traverse County Citizen Participation Plan. And whereas the plan identifies how Grand Traverse County will seek public input when receiving or utilizing GDBG, and will also be followed in the seeking public input for future revolving loan fund applications, which will be handled through the Chamber Foundation. And whereas CDBG grants being applied for come before the Grand Traverse County Board for public input and comment with approval of application and award after public comment is received. And whereas this plan is also used for the Chamber Foundation applications to assure that the public hearing process takes place and the public comments are forwarded to the Chamber Foundation, but no action is required by the county board. And whereas the County Ways and Means Committee recommended approval. Now, this is where you have the opportunity. Basically what this is, the county gets block grant monies, whether they're being used for EDC purposes or community development processes. Grand Traverse County, through the regionalization, has partnered with the Traverse City Chamber of Commerce Chamber Foundation to actually handle the applications and review the applications, but the money still has to pass through Grand Traverse County, as we are the fiscal agency to receive federal monies for economic development in our community. But we have partnered with them for the review and the recommendations to how to distribute those funds and best use the money. So at this time, is there anyone in the public wishing to have opportunity to speak? Did I have that right, Dean?
There's no rush to the microphone, no.
I just wanted to make sure I had it right, that we are the fiscal agency, the money comes to us first and then it goes to the chamber.
In order to be distributed through the revolving loan fund, we've got to go through a public hearing process.
Right. All right. Seeing no information and no people running up for the public comment, our commissioners have any comments to make? We'll entertain a motion to pass the resolution in your packet. Motion by Rennie, supported by Thomas. Any further discussion? Should we roll call that one, Bob? Because it's turning over grant money.
Yes.
All right. Because of the fact this is a resolution where we are turning over grant money to the Chamber Foundation, we will roll call vote this. If you would, please, Bonnie.
Inman,
Yes.
Yep.
Thomas, Max Bauer,
Yes.
Lathrop,
Yes.
Rennie,
Yes.
Wheelock.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Hopefully we got that all done properly the first time. All right, moving forward, that's the approval of the Grand Traverse County Participation Plan. This brings us to Administration and Finance. I'm sorry, we got to back up one item removed from the consent calendar. Charlie, you pulled the MSAS minutes of A6, page 29 in our packet. Chuck is here. Maybe he would like to speak to this a little bit when you have some questions.
If you would.
For those of you that don't know me, I'm Chuck Welch. Been a board representative, I want to say, for 6 to 8 years on the NEMSAS board, after my predecessor retired from the position. So I'm willing to answer whatever questions, the best of my knowledge.
Okay, we'll see what we can do.
I did prepare, so we'll see if I can successfully answer what you're looking for.
I did review your minutes of July.
Okay.
And if you look at this 4, number 2, B2, I guess that would be, it talks about a longevity incentive that was passed by motion, approved 15-9. And I've had some feedback from some people that aren't quite clear on what this is all about,
Okay.
why there would be this incentive program for these employees, and where the funds are coming from to pay it.
Okay. Well, to lay a little bit of background, 2011, I'm on the Finance Personnel Committee as well. We set aside general fund money in NEMSAS because we foresaw that the changes to the PHIPs was coming. So at that point, we set aside, I want to say it was $550,000 for closeout costs. And part of that motion was also to investigate and to bring to the full board severance package options for the staff who had been longstanding with NEMSAS, to not necessarily award them, but kind of give them the good faith, knowing that they're going from no job into a poor job market. And it was also, as it developed and as this motion came through, became an incentive package because these people didn't have any reason to stay to NEMSAS. We did lose people to the new entity, which is their right. They could have went to other jobs. However, if all 14 staff members would have done that, NEMSAS would have become defunct in their coordinating agency duties. So that was also part of this longevity, which is why it changed from the severance word to longevity, because we added that incentive package to it as well. Now, I read the paper today as well, and it kind of alluded to the fact that this is public funds. It's not. It's NEMSAS general money funds. Where that was generated was fund money left over from liquor tax and public funds being invested. The money that this is being taken from are the returns on those investments. All public funding money is being sent liquor tax-wise to where it's supposed to be going. So, I mean, there's a motion later that I'm here to also can address, but for instance, there's $260,000 from a fund balance of 2013 liquor tax that's going to be coming back as of January 15. The liquor tax fund balance from 2014 will also be going to the new entity or to the county and then to the new entity as you guys see fit.
Okay, are the liquor tax collections, is that a restricted fund that you work with there?
It's restricted by use, yes. It's restricted, it has to be used in the county it's generated from, only for substance abuse services for
Okay, I
clients.
guess my issue a little bit is you're investing restricted funds. The
It's-
return on those restricted funds is now going to be used in a non-restricted basis for whatever.
Yeah.
I don't
And
get that leap.
And that was part of, I mean, this, as you saw, this was not an easy, there was much debate from 2011 until now. And what we were told by our auditors, East Lansing Company, that this money is not unrestricted. It's NEMSAS's money to do as they see fit. So based on that is where I made my vote on that motion.
And who made that decision now? I'm sorry, who gave you that ruling or?
Our auditors, we get audited like every a nonprofit entity every year. I think I have their name if you're...
No, it doesn't matter, but that was
Okay.
their feeling, that would then not be...
Yes, and NEMSAS does have a legal team that has reviewed that as well.
Chris?
Chuck, what I heard you just say is that revenue generated from public funds are not considered by NIMSAS public funds.
The interest and earnings off of the investments of the money?
Off of public funds is not
That
public
is-
funds.
that is my
That's what I
understanding.
just heard you say.
That is my understanding.
That's absolutely ludicrous.
It's my understanding.
That's my only comment.
I mean, it may be considered public funds, however, it's not restricted in its use as far as I've been told.
I'm not talking about whether or not it's restricted,
Oh.
but you said that it's not considered public funds. I'm sorry, you know, when we look at interest in our funds, we consider that interest public funds. It's from public dollars. And, well, as you can tell from my tone, I'm not at all happy with what your board is suggesting.
Okay.
And if at all possible, I'm going to disallow it.
Okay. And if I misspoke calling it public funds versus unrestricted, restricted, that's on me. That's not on NEMSAS, so I apologize if
Dan?
that's confusion.
I think you're just playing with words. You wouldn't have that extra money from interest if the public didn't fund it. And to say now that's your money, I think is ludicrous. That money should be put back into the treatment program and shouldn't be used for personal benefits. It's just a word game. I feel the same way Commissioner Max Bauer does. If I have anything to say about it, which I probably won't, I'm voting against it.
Okay. Well, I'd also like to say, you know, of the 14 employees, there's only going to be 4 that's carried over. All 14 did stay till September.
About that.
The 4 that are staying are taking extreme cuts in benefits, reduction of holidays, personal days, and in pay with the new entity because, you know, so there are some losses to everybody. I don't think anybody on this whole employment is gaining anything.
I'm
That's a
sorry there wasn't any
personal choice.
oversight on this.
What's that?
I'm sorry there wasn't any oversight on this, that you guys could make this decision on your own.
Larry?
Well, I guess I have a couple points. One is that, number one, I was just surprised that somebody wasn't appointed a governmental agency to be the fiscal agent and have the responsibility of making or at least reviewing financial matters that we're sending money into. I understand it's a nonprofit. That's the way it was set up. And I guess I was just surprised that there wasn't a designated fiscal agent that is represented by a board, an elected board, and accountable to the public. So that's just my first surprise out of it. I guess the second thing is that I agree with the comments that have been made here that if the investment was made and a return was made from those investments to secure a fund balance so you would have the ability to take care of situations of need that as they go up and down throughout, various fiscal years, you would have the ability to take care of those needs and identify those needs in the community and treat those needs. And to build a fund balance of that nature to that size tells me that you were probably overfunded, or you could have serviced more of the population and dug deeper into areas where people were having substance abuse problems, for example, and probably got in there and treated more people through the years and not carried that kind of a balance. So to hold that kind of a fund balance and then at the end say we're just going to, this is just my opinion, we're going to dissolve. Well, I guess that is unfortunate, but we're going to take part of the remainderment balance and fund it as income to the individuals. I think it just sends a bad message about the agency and its purpose. And I would have hoped that your board would have voted that investment dollars should have remained within the confines of treatment dollars, and however that's handled in terms of transfers or maintaining your current status in terms of what you guys will or will not do. But I'm certainly not in favor as an elected official of paying out bonuses on an entity that is dissolving. But so that's just my comment. I guess the only thing that we could do as a board, based on what you're telling us today, is the only thing we could do is send an advisory vote to your board asking you to reconsider. And I think that's the only option I can see on the table now. And I certainly, unless the chairman wants further discussion, I would make that motion that the Board of Commissioners.
David wants to speak.
All right,
and
okay.
We've got a couple other commissioners.
All right, let's
I
just
just
do
wanted to
that.
ask Chuck, Chuck, for the folks that are not going to be employed any longer, if they're unemployed, is liquor tax funds going to be used to pay unemployment and any other closed-down costs, or is it going to be the funds that are used also for this longevity?
There'll be general NEMSAS general funds, not liquor tax funds.
Liquor tax funds can't be used to pay the...
Nothing but subsidy services within the county that they're generated from.
Okay, thank you.
Charlie?
Chuck, how many employees are involved? I heard the number 14.
That's my understanding, it's 14.
What's the amount of money that would be involved with this severance in total?
It was up to, hang on, I'll get it right here for you.
66.
Up to $266,225.
Okay, I see.
That's in salary, then there's some FICA and retirement payroll expenses as well.
Excuse me, sorry. I also noticed that to qualify, you have to have a year or so under your belt.
Yes, sir.
So that tells me that the distributions will not be equal. Is that correct?
They will not, because it's based on $125 per month of employment.
So what will be the range of the benefit to these employees?
Well, at the time of the motion, I can tell you we'd have to do the math, but the year range
Just
was
roughly.
1.2 years on the low end to 25.9 years on the high end for the employees. So it'd kind of be a shot in the dark to figure out what.
20-year employee would get 30,000.
Yeah, a 20-year employee will get $30,000.
Okay, that's what we want to know. Thank you.
That's Dave and I we crunched those numbers earlier today.
Dean,
And
go ahead, Chuck, finish.
yeah, I did talk to Anita Somick, who's the CFO, Chief Financial Officer of NEMSAS today. And is that right, Dean?
She's their finance
Okay.
director.
Just to see, because they came with us with 3 options for the severance package, and we chose the less expensive, but it wasn't a lot less expensive of the 3. Asked her where she generated these 3 options, and she said that they did research of other nonprofit organizations who have been closed down and their severance packages, and they set up these 3 based on what the averages were of that research. So I just wanted to give you guys that information as well.
Dean, if I understand this correctly, Grand Traverse County collects monies from taxpayers in our community that have liquor licenses, whether it be by the glass or carryouts. A portion of that money is given to the Sheriff's Department for liquor enforcement, and a portion of the money is given to a substance abuse agency to provide treatment. Is that correct? Is it 50/50 about?
Not necessarily. We receive these payments directly from the state. I can't tell you exactly how they determine.
Dollar model.
Yeah, they're distributed back based on some formula. To say that those funds are all generated in Grand Traverse County, I don't know. But I do know that they can only be used for the purposes that Chuck has already mentioned. And I've talked to Dave Snyder, who's the CEO of the new entity, and Anita as well. And these funds are audited. They're subject to the most stringent audit requirements because of the fact that they can only be used for substance abuse services. And Chuck also mentioned that the funds that we distribute, that we have distributed so far to NIMSAS, can only be used on Grand Traverse County residents. And none of those dollars can be used for administrative purposes. Those funds could not be used for, what's being proposed here. I am not familiar with how they determine, if the interest on those dollars. I mean, they do have other revenue sources. They're accumulating a fund balance. They have salaries to pay. I'm simply not familiar with that to answer that question, but what I have been told is that these funds are not restricted like the liquor tax funds, which we're going to be talking about later.
I have a question.
The one point that I'll make first, in regard to your comment, Larry, Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners has appointed Chuck Welch for the past 6 years to represent us on the MSAS board. We have had representation on that board, and I think up until today, I think we've all been very pleased with the decisions. And I think this is a situation that's evolved out of the regionalizations that we've been talking about with a number of agencies. We talked about it with the Chamber Foundation, with the EDC, with the Brownfields, with the whole works, but all of this regionalization that seems to be the buzzword today, and the collaboration, it comes with some drawbacks. One thing it comes with is a lack of control by the local entities. I contend that when we were providing services in Grand Traverse County to the Grand Traverse County residents, we were doing a better job than we are regionally, whether it be mental health or whether it be EDC, whether it be Brownfield. But the fact is, that's not the way the state's going to allow us to do it anymore. We got to get involved in these regionalization things, or else we don't qualify to get the money. But at least from my perspective, I'm not sure the regionalization works. I truly am not. I guess the only thing that I would suggest, and before you start to speak, Chris, the only thing I would suggest is we ask Mr. Cooney to provide us with a legal opinion whether we have any recourse to, advise MSAS to do something different. They are a board, they are a private entity, they're a nonprofit organization. We have representation on that board. They've made a decision. Do we have any opportunity to have any say over that decision? And that's a legal question. It's certainly not something I have purview to know. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree that we need to have a legal opinion as to whether or not we can stop what NIMSAS is doing with those funds. I do consider them county funds. All that being said, what has been pulled from the consent calendar is receive and file. And therefore, I would move to receive and file the Northern Michigan Substance Abuse Services minutes of 7/7/14.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to receive and file the IMSAS minutes. You know, I think it was pulled so as that we'd have the opportunity to have this discussion.
I appreciate that.
I think
it
the
comes
discussion-
later, too.
The discussion, we will have further discussion
Yes.
later, too. But that was, that was an opportunity here. All right, so we have a motion made and seconded to approve, to receive and file the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Don't leave, because we have more discussion.
Yeah.
I'm planning on staying.
Don't
Thank you.
run away.
I'm sure we're not planning on leaving. Okay, now this brings us to administration and finance. The claim summary is on your desk, an amount of $10,666,219.61. Dean, is there anything you want to tell us about any of this?
Nope. Nope. It's pretty straightforward. It's $4 million less than last month, largely due to the lower state education tax that we receive from the local units and then remit to the state. So lower than last month, but the audit committee has reviewed almost all of these claims. So with that, I would ask for your approval.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the claims report for September 14th as presented for $10,666,219.61.
Second.
Motion by Inman, supported by Thomas. Is there any further discussion? Roll call vote, please. This one we are spending money.
Thomas?
Yep.
Max Bauer?
Yes.
Lathrop?
Yeah.
Rennie?
Okay.
Inman?
Yes.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am. The next item would be the House Bill 4874. You have a resolution opposing House Bill 4874 on your desk. David, would you like to speak to this, please?
Certainly. This House Bill 4874 would make it acceptable for haulers to spread waste on land again. As you know, we created a septic treatment plant. The townships built a septic treatment plant on the hopes that this law would not get changed, and that one day it would become a prohibited activity to spread septic on farmers' fields and so forth. And there is some movement out there by the industry to lift that requirement, which would be very detrimental to our septic treatment plant.
Yeah, if the state passes this amendment to the law, that would be the biggest double cross that the state has ever pulled on a township. Because these townships have all got a lot of money invested, and they're just getting to the point where our septic facility is getting somewhat viable, and now they want to jerk the rug out from under them. If this passes, they might as well close that, because it'll go broke.
Larry?
Listen, Dave, I think it's also, from what I understand regarding this bill, when I had discussions prior to my surgery with the Michigan Association of Counties on this thing. By the way, the Michigan Township Association, Municipal League, and MAC have all come together and opposed this bill. Doesn't the bill also say that not only can they spread it on land again, but they can take it to any facility they want? So,
That's right.
you know, that law that says you got to take it within a 25-mile radius, that would go away.
That's correct.
And the bonds that we sold, by virtue of having that ability, or that protection, would also go away as well.
You're exactly correct.
So we got to stand strong behind this thing.
The bond and the obligation doesn't go away, it's
No.
just the revenue source.
The revenue source, based on that.
It's ironic that for the past 15 years, the state has almost annually put more and more restrictions on septic, where it could be spread, what licensing, what it had to be put through a half-inch square screen, had to be covered within 4 hours, and just over and over and over, continuous restrictions, and thereby, you know, public entities determined that we needed a place to get rid of this waste. And thus, you know, septic treatment facilities were created, not only here in Grand Traverse County, but throughout the state. Those are all, you know, paid for with public dollars. And, you know, and bonds were sold based on public input. And now the state's coming along with a House bill that would eliminate all those restrictions, and all this investment has been made to put in, you know, made capital improvements to handle the septic, and now there's nothing says that they'll have any revenue coming in. Dean?
I was asked by the townships to bring this before you. There was a hearing that was scheduled for last week, Thursday, that was canceled, and it's now tentatively scheduled for October 2nd, which I think is next Thursday. And we've worked very closely with those 5 townships and the rural townships on this facility. And I certainly wouldn't want you to read through the bill, because the bill is quite confusing, but in your packet is also the legislative analysis. And the thing that really caught my attention was they were saying that the cost to the local units was indeterminate. There's a significant cost to 5 townships and the county if this bill became law, because there would be a couple of other things that would go into effect. If you have the ability to store 50,000 gallons or more, you would not have to take that waste to the facility. There was an exemption until 2025 in the current law, but it would also not allow us to have the ordinances that we have in place to bring the waste. I mean, that's already been mentioned, but I just feel that this is something, and Dave and I talked about this briefly last week. I don't think he knew that this was going to be in the board packet, but he did a good job of explaining this, and I really do feel that we need to. Chris wrote the resolution, which, you know, hits all of the points that we're really concerned about, and we probably should, if the board does approve this, I definitely would like to have this sent down to the appropriate people before that meeting, and I know I'm being asked to go down and perhaps even speak to the group before they have the hearing, so that's where I stand on this.
I would move that we accept this resolution that's in front of you as it is.
Okay. A motion by Thomas, supported by Rennie. Further discussion? Charlie?
Dean, or David, you have any indication, or have you looked at any numbers to see what effect this is going to have on our current situation, other than just negative?
That's all it's going to be.
Well, the balance on our bonds are, what?
Well, I would think that
$7.5 million.
I would think that the first thing we would see is we'd have lower volumes of septic waste being brought to the plant. In terms of what that volume would be, no, we have not done that analysis, but you have a plant that's in another local unit that's not too far from here that would probably receive some of the waste, and it has a lower processing cost than we have. But right now, we have the volume that we need for that plant to operate at a positive cash flow and to service the debt that we refinanced along with those 5 townships. To lose that volume and that revenue stream would have a negative impact on that plant's operations.
Do you think that this passed in the legislature, septic fees to residents would decline or increase?
Well, it's not going to decline.
Yeah, they're not going to decline, I don't think.
So then why are you worried about this septic going someplace else?
Because we have,
It's about money.
well, the reason is, it's already been stated. I mean, this septic treatment plant was built with a law that said you can't take it more than 25 miles away. And if you take that away, you take it out of the law, then the reason for building that facility disappears.
I'm not questioning that. I'm just
I mean,
asking.
we've got to have something within 25 miles for our waste to go to.
Well, I think the other piece of it is, it was, when the discussion about the septic plant was being taken, you know, and we've had, and we've all been beat up terribly about the septic plant overall as a region, but the fact is, those 5 townships stepped up, identified the need, stepped up and had a plant. Grand Traverse County participated as a fiscal agency, we sold the bonds, but they're on the hook for it, we're not, they are. But the biggest thing was, treating septic was the right thing to do. Dumping it on the ground wasn't a good thing. Stick it, you know, I had an opportunity a few years ago to go to an injection site where a local hauler was injecting the solid waste into the ground. I've worked in landfills, I've worked in plants all over everywhere, and I can tell you I've never been at a more disgusting site in my life. You know, that was the biggest farce I've ever seen. But the fact is, treating septic is the right thing to do. Having faulty septic systems that are leaking into our groundwater, having people dump it onto the ground, it's not the right thing to do. Treating it properly, having it come through our wastewater treatment plant, having it come out tertiary treatment on the other end, this is the right way to treat septic. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The fact of the matter is that if this bill passes, 4874, it has the potential of, and I'm not exaggerating this, bankrupting 5 townships.
That's right.
Because while the county sold the bonds, the townships, East Bay, Acme, Peninsula, Garfield,
And Elmwood.
and Elmwood are on the hook for this. And Grand Traverse County residents, the ones that did not back those bonds, are in all likelihood not going to have to pay. I cannot stress to the township supervisors enough, I cannot stress to the township residents enough of the severity of when this bill passes. And I went to MAC here not more than, 2 weeks ago. This bill is going to pass. It's going to pass. So, about the only way I can think of to stop that passage, or at least amend it. This bill at least minimally needs to be amended so that the entities, the municipalities that have stepped up and have built these plants because of state law, and suddenly that state law no longer exists. I mean, there has to be some protection in some way, shape, or form. But at this point in time, I think township residents need to be made aware that they're going to be severely impacted if this bill passes. And they need to contact not just their state legislators, they need to contact the governor's office.
Further discussion? We have a motion made on the floor to pass this resolution and forward it, including copies to Senator Walker, Representative Smet, Representative Ken Goke, and the Michigan Association of Counties. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Okay, this brings us to, there was a little glitch apparently in the cost-sharing agreement for the Lafreniere Road program, the final approval. Bob, I think you changed some wording in that, correct? Page 79.
That would have been Chris.
Chris did. You have some revised wording for the agreement, whereas it says in paragraph 3, it's added, further civil council will review the agreement and include the cap amount on funding sources in the document, and it will be brought back for final approval. We never brought that back for the final approval. That's why it's back in our packet tonight. We had asked legal counsel to review that agreement and make sure that everything was okay and that the cap was hard in that number. If you remember the draft agreement didn't have a cap number on it. Chris?
I would move for final approval.
Motion by Max Bauer, supported by Rennie. Further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. This brings us to substance abuse funds, liquor tax distribution tabled from Ways and Means. See, you didn't get out quick enough, Chuck. David, do you or Dean have anything you
Yeah,
want to
let
add
me
to this?
start. Let me start with this. I think, I'm going to say we have two issues here. And what we need to consider is the fact that the issue that I'm addressing with the substance abuse funds are the funds that are currently with NIMSAS. And you can see on page 83, we actually have broken this down into two recommendations. The new entity will start servicing or providing services October 1st, which is just next week. And there are funds with NIMSAS that are available to be distributed either back to Grand Traverse County or directly to the new entity. And those funds amount to $263,000.76. Those are liquor tax funds that we have appropriated to them for that use and that purpose. And those, that's a balance that they know that they're not going to spend on any current services or services that have been provided when they close their books. And then in the process of closing their books, they have contracts with service providers that will take time for those providers to submit their bills, and then they do have an audit requirement. Their books are going to be audited probably late November and December. Their fiscal year end is September 30th. So the issue that I'm bringing to you is one of how do we handle the funds that they have in terms of making those funds available to continue to provide those substance abuse services. And so I would like to keep the issues separate.
I guess what we'd like to do, because of this agenda item, I would suggest that we limit this discussion to the 2013-2014 liquor tax fees funds that have been deposited with IMSAS to provide services to our community. And my suggestion would be that we advise IMSAS that we expect them to return that money to Grand Traverse County so as that we can pay it. I would just as soon have them give it back to us and then us pay that check to the new entity. I think it's cleaner that way. Or would you like them to just deposit? I just think it's cleaner if they give us back our money and we give it to the new entity.
And that was in their letter, which is attached, that was one option. We can turn those funds around relatively quickly. Our concern, Dave and mine, is that the new entity has funds to operate with,
Starting October 1.
1st. They will receive a payment from the state. They'll start receiving some funds directly, and then we will have another payment from the state in November that we would distribute directly to the new entity. Although my recommendation says to transfer the funds to the new entity, I would be fine with your.
It's just another accounting entry for us. I mean, it's going to be verified on the Northern Michigan regional entity. They're going to receive the money. It's going to be sent on by October 1st, and there's going to be a transaction there. If we get in the middle of it, then we've got to book it in, and we've got to expense it out. So I think that's why Dean wants to kind of tell them to transfer it.
You're right. The issue that came before us last meeting was get these funds over to these people so they can provide services. I want Chuck to tell us the fastest way to get these funds over to these people. It should not come back through the county. It can go directly. There's no need for that to take another month. These people need money now as of October 1st, or they're not going to perform these services. And quite honestly, I would have a question for Chuck, is why does it take into 2015 to get the 14 number?
I got a question.
Go ahead, Chuck, you can head up here and we'll listen to Chris's question too.
I guess my concern is that this money get there now quick.
I think it's all electronic accounting, so I don't know which way would be quicker. I think it might be easier to go direct. I know as the board, we recommended it go back to the county and then come back, and NEMSAS, then it came out that, and that was because we're going to multiple PHIPs and multiple new entities. We're 30 counties going down to, I think the new entity is 21, does that sound right? So some of these counties are not going to be part of this, that's why we changed this around. But then it was made to give the county the option to send it direct or not. So I believe the money would be quicker to go from A to B, but if it goes A, B to C, I think we're talking a couple days, but I'm not the accountant, so.
Thanks.
Yep.
Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an entity that has over $200,000 in the bank that they're ready to write checks for longevity. I don't think they're desperate for funds. Am I missing something here? And I certainly could be.
No, go ahead.
I'm also your rep on the new entity, so I, no longer on the NEMSAS, but now the new entity, I'll put that hat on. The new entity has no money. We have no money for any billings
Well-
we receive October 1st.
May I ask you why the old entity doesn't give that $200,000 to the new entity
That's what
for
we're here-
services?
That's what
That's
we're
what
here
we're trying to
That's
do.
what we're here to try to
Instead of
determine
longevity?
how to make that happen. No. Two separate issues.
That's a different fund.
Not, to me, it's not.
Well, there is. It is two separate issues because there's no question that IMSAS is acknowledging that $263,076 is available to provide services going forward after October 1st. They have that money. That money is available to be released basically immediately. The question we have to decide, do we want them to send the money back to Grand Traverse County, and then we pay it to the new entity, or do we allow them to transfer the money directly? It's either here or there.
I'm sorry, I just don't
The
view it as,
the second issue, which is completely different.
I don't view it that way.
Well, it is because it's
I
an
don't.
additional $266,000 of money. It's not the same money. These are two separate pots of money.
Right.
They have $266,000 worth of money sitting in this hand that they're talking about using for longevity. They have $263,000 of money sitting in this hand, which they have to provide services in our community with. This money is what we're discussing right now. Send that $263,000 to provide service. Release that money immediately.
I'll make a motion to authorize NEMSAS to transfer the balance for fiscal year 2013 directly to the Northern Michigan Regional Entity by 10/1/14.
Second.
10-1.
10/1/14.
Right.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Rennie, supported by Inman, to direct IMSAS to transfer the $263,076 that they currently have for treatment fees directly to, the name of the new entity is,
Northern Michigan Regional.
Northern Michigan Regional Entity.
No, it's not Northern Michigan Substance Abuse anymore. Anyway,
Northern Michigan Regional Entity.
Northern Michigan Regional Entity. Real creative naming. All right, is there any further discussion on that issue? All right, all those in favor of transferring the available treatment funds immediately, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. And as far as I care, Dean, if you need to help them get that money transferred to the proper place, whether it's faster if it comes back to you and then goes out, or directly to the entity, I don't care.
I think your motion said to transfer it directly.
Right. That's what it said.
But there was a question raised about the timing that it takes. They're NIMSAS is still providing services, and they will continue to provide services through September 30th. And then their contracts that they have with those vendors or service providers require them to have their invoicing for those services in. They can run out 60 days. So you're going to go pretty much through the end of November when some of those final bills could come in. And then the time it will take to audit the books to make sure that they're using these funds appropriately. I was told that would take until the end of December, which is why in their letter, the balance of the funds that they have would not be available until probably January to be distributed. So that was the reason we asked for the second action to transfer those remaining funds. Obviously, I mean, we want to do that as soon as possible, but we have no control in, you know, when those invoices will come in or.
But the $263,000 is 2013 money. That money is available for transfer immediately. The 2014 money, well, we've already passed that motion.
Right.
The 2014 money they will hold until they clean up the end of their year, and, you know, for all practical purposes, I understand the MSAS will be defunct as of December, you know, by December 31st of this year.
Yeah, I've been
The new
told
entity
that the money will be clear to go to the new entity by the 31st at the latest of January. That's what I've been told.
So the point is, that they will still be holding some of our 2014 money to clean up the end of the year, but the 2013 money, those final numbers, those books are closed on 2013. That money is immediately available for transfer, and we've already passed the motion to do that. So then the second motion would be to direct them to transfer all remaining 2014 numbers to the new entity as soon as their books are closed.
Do you want that motion?
Yes.
I would make a motion for NEMSIS to travel the fiscal year 2014 balance funds to the Northern Michigan Regional Entity on the completion of their fiscal year closing and before the end of January 2015.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same.
Thank you.
Motion carried. Now, I would ask, do you want to have discussion about getting a legal opinion in regard
do.
to the longevity? Chris?
Please, is there any way that we can stop this board? As far as I'm concerned, those are public dollars, and those public dollars need to be used for substance abuse, which is what the money was intended for. Is there any way to stop that board from distributing that money for longevity pay?
If you could make a motion to have our office prepare a memorandum, we'll do that.
I would make a motion to ask the county prosecutor to prepare a memorandum regarding the legality of using what.
My understanding is your concern is whether the county board has any authority to.
Thank you. Yes, that is it.
NEMSAS board.
Yes.
I'll second it.
I just want to know if we can
We
stop
have
it.
a
If we
motion
can't,
made
we
and
can't.
seconded to ask for a legal opinion in regard to whether or not Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners has any authority over the decision made by the NIMSAS board to distribute longevity pay to their employees. Is that the way
Yes, thank you.
I understand that?
I couldn't have said it any better
Correct.
myself.
David?
Okay, to get a legal opinion, it would be fine, but I'm guessing that this promise has been made to the employees that are involved, and that October 1st, they are no longer in business. So this is a week from now.
I'm
And
afraid
I'm
this
not
is a
sure
moot-
if you're-
I'm afraid this is a mute point at this
Well,
point, unfortunately.
I think the best you can do right now, if anything, is to immediately send something to the NEMSAS board, as
That's
Commissioner
what I was
Inman
gonna try to do.
suggested, send something that says, we object to this. We don't think it's the right thing to do.
I agree with that, because my off-the-cuff opinion would be that, it's an independent board. It's composed of members of 30 different counties. I think the actual board that made the decision was the financial board or fiscal board.
Finance Committee.
Finance committee, but.
Whatever you call it.
But anyway, I don't, that's my off-the-cuff opinion, but we're certainly willing to look at it.
We authorize the
And it sounds
prosecutor
as though the
to...
funds will not be distributed till January 1st, is that? No.
I believe the longevity payments will go out in October at some point.
Okay.
I believe. I
Charlie?
do not know that for sure.
Question for prosecuting attorney. What is your feeling on the ruling that they got that says restricted funds, investment results from restricted funds can then be considered non-restricted? Should we be looking at that at all, or just what this board can do?
Yeah, well, I don't want to give an opinion on that
Of
without
course.
doing a little
increase. So should we be seeking that as well, or do you think it's
It'll be,
worthwhile?
it'll be part of the memo, I would assume.
Yeah. Yes.
Well,
Go ahead.
even though we've asked for the opinion, I still think we should send them a letter indicating of our displeasure towards the use of those funds, and that we're currently seeking an opinion through our council on the validity of it.
We can handle that as a second issue after this motion, if you
Yes.
would like.
Yes.
Okay, is there any further discussion on the motion requesting a legal opinion from the civil council? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. We'll entertain a motion asking a letter be drafted to the IMSAS board, asking them to delay any distribution of longevity pays prior that, or Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners reserves, opportunity to have input, maybe, I don't know how you word it.
I'd like to see a letter signed by our chairman, well, our vice chairman, indicating that we've been advised for the use of the remainder dollars that have been designated towards longevity payments or bonuses, and that we object to the use of those funds, and we believe those funds should be used for treatment services, and we ask them to reconsider their decision.
I would second that.
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded. Bob, do you want to have Chris draft that letter, or that would probably be best, I think?
Well,
If your
it'll
office could
come
draft
from
that
our
letter.
office.
Yeah, I think it needs to come from our office, whether Bob does it or whether Chris does it or who. I think, it needs to come from our civil council to the IMSAS board, objecting to the use of what we believe to be restricted funds
Right.
for the distribution of
Yes.
longevity pay.
Right,
Yes.
So we will prepare a letter.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion made and seconded asking for the letter be sent to IMSAS as soon as possible. If Herb's unavailable, I will sign the letter as soon as it's available. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. All right, that brings us to the Community Mental Health Interagency Agreement. It was tabled at Ways and Means. We have a revised draft on your desk. I think you had some input on that too, right, Bob?
Yeah, this was originally drafted by Northern Lakes Community Mental Health, and I kind of took the reins on redrafting it, sought input from several, well, for some reason after I started redrafting it, I got a lot more input from the circuit court in particular, the sheriff and the jail. And so I've added their comments. I know that Northern Lakes Community Mental Health has reviewed the revised draft that you have in front of you, and that they're satisfied with the changes. The sheriff and the, as far as I know, the circuit court has approved it. And I think the only party that hasn't given me any feedback is the district court at this point, or at least on the revised draft. So my recommendation would be that you approve the agreement tonight. If there are any concerns that the district court has, then we could always revisit this at the October 1st Public Health and Safety meeting. We're supposed to have this agreement in place by October 1st. There's some debate about whether community mental health could stop providing jail mental health services. If we don't have this agreement in place, I disagree with that. I think they're obligated to do that. We have our agreement with Northern Lakes Community Mental Health, which continues and still exists after this is in place, that requires them to provide jail services to inmates. And that was the whole purpose of this legislation, is to make it clear that community mental health does have an obligation to provide mental health services to jail inmates. So, so that would be my recommendation, is that you approve the agreement tonight.
Dan?
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion that we adopt this community mental health interagency agreement as amended, and sign it.
Motion by Lather, supported by Rennie. Further discussion, David?
I just wanted to note that, Mr. Cooney may not know it, but Judge Stepka and Carol Stocking, the court administrator from district court, were at the meetings with mental health on this. They've been kind of clued in on it, so I'm assuming that since they haven't responded, they're okay with the language. And
That's
they were-
what I'm assuming, and I know that they were involved in the meetings,
Right.
and I'm assuming that they just haven't responded because they don't have any further comments.
Right,
So-
okay.
You know, I tend to note that there's, you know, at least a dozen references in here of how mental health care for the people in our jail as they're coming in, going out, and residing in our jail are deficient. I think I've spoke to that issue at least once or twice over the last 16 years that I've been here. So, we have a motion on the floor.
Once or
Wait a second.
twice.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same? Motion carried. Thank you, Bob, for your help with this, because it's a complicated issue. You know, the initializing agreements with mental health, Great Lakes Mental Health, or however we're naming it this week, you know, go back a long time. And, you know, the entities that those original agreements were have been evolved into different organizations, and we just kind of got dropped through the hole somehow. All right, this brings us to new business. I have nothing on the agenda. Is there anyone bringing up anything that we don't know about?
The only thing I would ask the chairman, and I'll probably under commissioner reports, that I've gotten some feedback on some drainage issues at the Myers property, and Dave, I think, has an update, if we can get that update.
With the stormwater we've had in the last couple of weeks, I've got drainage issues in my own
Yeah.
driveway, so I can
Yeah.
imagine what construction sites
Right.
are looking like this week.
Yeah, so we can get that maybe
Okay,
under commissioner's
We
report.
can do that. This brings us to the second opportunity for public comment. Is there anyone wishing to make comment at this time? Seeing none. Commissioner reports.
Yeah, if I could ask Dave to brief the board on the issue regarding the Meyer property and the drainage into the stream and potentially into the bay. And he did look into it, and I'd like to have him give a report to the board.
Look, I've looked into it a couple times, and back when we had that rather large rain event, almost a 100-year rain event, we had 6 inches on the peninsula, and we had a lot of problems as a result of that. I spoke with the inspector that, you know, is monitoring the progress out at the Meyer property and permitting all that. He checked out all the controls that were in place, and they were all in place, and they were all working as expected, although, you know, it's still a mystery. I spoke with Bruce May this morning. They're still not sure where all the sediment that came and created that plume in the bay came from. But the fact of the matter is that, you know, there's the way the permitting process works. The developer and our soil erosion people have to work together, and they come up with a plan. We don't design the safeguards that are going in there, but we approve those. Those have to be done by an engineer, and they have to be approved by our inspector. Then they have to be executed by the contractor that's on the site. And we had another rain event this past weekend. There were some issues with whether those things got into place properly. There was, from what I understand, a berm was created to try and, because there's a pond, there's a retention pond that doesn't have a liner in it yet, so it's filled up with water because of all the rain, and it's supposed to have a liner because it's got a clay base, created a lot of overflow. To stop that, they decided, I guess on site, Elmer's decided to move some dirt, and there was so much rain that it kind of washed that all out, and that got into the river, or into the Acme Creek. There's a report here that Bruce gave to me, and it says basically, project manager was not properly monitoring the actual site conditions and ensuring the contractor installed erosion control measures in the proper sequence. So they have, they're requiring Gordy Frazier to provide a revised soil erosion plan and schedule, and they have corrective action here. So this past weekend was a different event. a lot of things have happened as far as the construction on the site in the last 2 weeks, and a lot of what happened this week, this weekend, was directly related to the Meyer property. So that's about all I know right now, and, the process is continuing. They're working with Gordy Frazier and Elmers to make sure that doesn't happen again, and I think they've been told that they kind of goofed, maybe, on the soil erosion techniques that they improvised.
We should note, I guess, that this is the Meyer construction site on M72
Right.
West. So as that we know which Myers property we're talking about.
Right.
And I've been on several construction sites this last week, and erosion is an issue everywhere I look. I've got erosion problems in my own driveway, let alone, at my house and at my shop. So it's with the rain that we've gotten in the last week, trying to control, in the last 2 to 3 weeks, trying to control all the runoff is unbelievable. We can speak with the road commission about the issues they're having. They're having the same thing. The soils at that construction site in Acme Township are very heavy soil. They don't retain water very well. Everything tends to run off the clay. So, there's a lot of issues. We have a procedure in place. It's sounding to me like the procedure is working. The construction manager has been advised what he needs to do to change. Gordy Frazier, the engineering firm, is working on a revised drawing, and our inspectors are on top of keeping track of what's going on. So, it's not a perfect solution, but, it's a process, and we're working our way through the process. Chris?
Commissioner, committee reports. I would like to take this opportunity to once again thank the county board for reaffirming their faith in the Parks Board. I don't know if any of you watched the last Parks Board meeting, but it was 4 fun-filled hours. That having been said, I am extraordinarily pleased to say that the Parks Board recommended their strong approval. It was 8-2, which I don't think is necessarily bad, because to recommend Chris Erickson for the director's position, of course, that is the choice of our county administrator. But I want to say that, the Parks Board, we actually do all get along. We disagree, but we disagree in good humor, and we try to make our best argument, and when we're done, we shake hands. And even though the vote was 8-2, it's a good board, and I would like to thank this board for their reaffirmation that the Parks Board has value. And of course, the substance of this report is that Christine Erickson was recommended to the county administrator to be our Parks Director. And we had a business development team meeting today at Twin Lakes. And I don't know if any of you saw the photos of the cratered dock out at Power Island. It was recommended by one of our Parks Commissioners, John Roth, that we look at a floating dock. Well, who would have thought? We own a floating dock. It's sitting in the grass out at Twin Lakes.
It was installed at Twin Lakes 2 years ago.
No.
Yes,
No.
absolutely, positively.
No, it
was
wasn't.
installed.
I'll argue that with you.
No, I built it originally. I built it originally.
I believe you built it, but it wasn't-
I helped him install
I mean, it's been in the grass.
I helped him assemble it. It was installed 2 years, 3 years ago. It was installed.
Maybe
at
3, but
Twin
not
Lakes.
2. In any event, we own a floating dock, and Chris Erickson was extraordinarily excited about the potential opportunities for revenue at that facility, and I'm quite honestly, if I can bend the administrator's elbow a little bit, I think she's going to be an outstanding supporter of Twin Lakes and the revenue that it can generate for this county.
Okay. Further comments? Any other from commissioners? Any notices? Charlie?
Questions. We did a budget calendar, We were supposed to see or receive a recommended budget sometime in September.
That's correct.
I think it was the 17th.
Mm-hmm.
That was last week.
That's right.
As a commissioner, I don't want to get put in a position like we were last year, so this went down to the last minute, so we end up passing another budget with a systemic deficit. I would ask that this budget get out here so we can analyze it and see what we can do. I don't understand why we can't keep up with that, why we can't use that calendar. We made a resolution and passed that calendar. So that is a little upsetting, I would say. I think we should start looking at this stuff in a timely fashion, not wait till the end where we can't do anything. Just pass it. Number 2, had some complaints from citizens, residents, and developers about the construction code office again. Hard to work with, inefficient, cold reception, whatever you want to say. We've been watching this. I would make a request for the administrator. I don't think we have a board in between you and that department.
No.
I would like some recommendations of what we can do with the construction codes office to make that process better over there. Not complaining about anything. I want to know what you think we could do to make it a smoother operation, more open arm to residents and developers alike who want to come in here and do something. They shouldn't be held up. Now, that's 2 I've had, and that's both sides of it. And I think that's more than enough, again, that we start looking at this to see what we can do to help this county entertain and invite people here to come and do something, spend some money, do some development.
Okay.
One other deal. Kids Cove. I got a memo from you today that now you're closing it down. How long has this been going on? I've heard a soil test, then more soil tests, engineer to come in to look at the structure. This is the problem we have when you have a parks board in between you and the facilities guy, where in an afternoon you could say, let's go over there and take this down or whatever we have to do. This has been going on a couple of months, has it not? And where will it go to?
David?
Kids Cove. We got recommendations from, or we got soil samples done by MSU Extension. They indicated that arsenic levels at the bottom of the page on these short reports indicated that arsenic levels at Kids Cove were 19.9 parts per million. And that outside, I don't remember the exact, but outside of Kids Cove, it was very low. You know, 2 parts per million or something like that. We did some investigation. One of the Parks Board members got involved. He's kind of a scientist, and I'm not sure if he is a scientist or he just knows a lot about environmental things.
Mr. Albers.
Sounds like he is.
He said that, we probably should talk to the DEQ about that. I looked into it and I found, because I've worked on the dams, I knew that there was a recreational level for arsenic and there is a residential level for arsenic. The recreational level is 37 parts per million. We're at 19.9. And the residential is 7.6 parts per million. So when Christine Erickson contacted DEQ, they ran into Steve, I can't remember his last name, Kittrick or something like that, that said, for something like Kids Cove, you should probably use the residential criteria. So she talked with Chris Forsyth about that, because I had said, well, I'm not sure what we should do. Right now, we're below the recreational level, and by gosh, we're not a residence. This is a park, a county park. Talked to Chris. Chris said, well, since the DEQ has said you probably should use it, whether they have the authority to say that or not, we should probably close it. Which, this morning I went over to Parks and we closed it. We closed it and basically said, we didn't want to say closed for arsenic. We didn't want to say closed forever. We said closed for maintenance. And we're not sure what the maintenance is going to be because we're waiting to hear back from the DEQ on what remediation we should take. And I guess once we hear back from the DEQ, it might be just as simple as taking the wood chips off and putting new wood chips down, or taking an inch of soil off, or sealing it, or I don't know what. But we just don't know until we hear back from the DEQ, and right now, it's closed until we hear back from the DEQ, and then we'll bring that information back and decide whether it's something we can do very quickly and cheaply, or if it's something that's going to take quite a bit of involved, work. We're going to go back to the Parks Board and talk to them about it, and maybe even come back to the Board of Commissioners and talk to them about it. That's where we are.
David, I didn't write fast enough. What is the acceptable level for residential?
7.6 parts per million,
And we're at 19.9,
yes,
but 37 parts is acceptable for residential.
for
No.
recreation.
For recreation. Dick?
There's a lot of treated lumber over there, isn't there?
Yes,
That's where the arsenic comes from.
pretty much, that's common, it's a likely suspect.
Yeah, the original construction was all done with arsenic-treated lumber.
Yep, that's
I
where it
was
comes
there,
from.
and, it is part of it. Charlie?
Well, that's my point. I was at a special Parks Board meeting, there's some structural issues over there too. They want to bring an engineer to look at what wood could be replaced. They're talking about replacing wood with wood that we know has contributed to some of this issue with arsenic.
Well,
I believe if we didn't have such a complicated system, that could have got more quickly through to Dave, and we could have made a decision on this and taken that wood out of there, as Dick says.
My understanding, if I could just respond to that, my understanding, talking to Danny Brown, is that you really can't pull that out in pieces. You start pulling that out, and because it's all foundationed into the ground, it's cement down there. You start pulling that apart, you're going to have to take the whole thing out.
we do have some representatives of the committee from Kids Cove here. Did any of you want to make comment at this point? She spoke earlier under public comment. I think it's fair to give them opportunity.
Do I have to state the name and everything again? There's a couple clarifications I need to make. First of all, the committee has not requested necessarily to replace wood with wood. We have requested that Leathers Incorporated, the company that we used initially to build this structure, be allowed to come back in and reassess the structure. It is something they routinely do. They've been in the business for 40 years. They currently hold 5 of the top 30 playgrounds worldwide. They hold awards for them. They're very, very familiar with their structures. They've been building these since 1970s. We also have many in the northern climates. I know that that's been a concern for the Parks and Recreation Board. So arsenic and the complaints that we're getting into are very familiar. They're very, very familiar with all those things. I think that the suggestion that was actually made to the Parks Commission was that $1,500 would bring that company back here, and they would reevaluate everything and give us an absolute overall exactly what we need to do to bring it up to code and to meet some of these other concerns that you're having. We haven't been given permission to bring them back in. $1,000 of that would be returned to us when we decided to build again. So it's either going to be $1,500 or $500 that we would be out of pocket. I'm sorry, I'm trying to think some of the things you just addressed. I'm a little bit frustrated. We've had about an hour's notice on some of the things that you're talking about tonight, so I don't have a lot of information to give today. I'm not super prepared. The concern with arsenic, from my understanding, is there's an organic and an inorganic component to it. Arsenic appears in many situations as a naturally occurring product. It's in the soil regularly, and I think that you're seeing that in the 2% number that you're getting. But there is also another test that can be done to separate out those two components and tell us exactly what inorganic component level is of the 19% that we're getting near the playground. That is the digestible component, and that is the concern for children's safety. So I would strongly recommend that we do a little bit more extensive testing than a shovel next to the playground by somebody, that is just a layperson. That I think maybe a little bit more extensive testing could be done. Also, it might be an interesting test to take under the soil that's treated with pesticide in the Civic Center, because that also contains arsenic, and perhaps you'd see some elevated numbers in that area too. I do want to state publicly that I think there's a lot of sensational activity going on with this. We've closed the playground now, and it's very, very difficult as a committee. The committee that's here tonight actually was the original committee from 18 years ago. We've reconvened since we've heard about the potential to tear this park down. For those of you that don't remember, there were 2,600 community members who built this playground. It took almost 2 years to fundraise for this. And it truly was done with the pennies of children. It wasn't done with big corporate sponsorships. So for those of you who haven't heard my Parks and Recreation speech last month, I want you to understand that when it comes down to understanding what you're removing from Traverse City, it's not just a playground. So I hope you'll take that into consideration.
Chris?
You called him.
She asked first.
Ladies first.
Ladies first.
Yeah.
I do want to respond to one of your comments, and that is, the Parks Board has not ever suggested tearing that play structure out. The only person who suggested that was our former Parks Director. He is no longer with Grand Traverse County. And in response to your other suggestion about further testing, I did contact our health department today, Wendy Trout, our health department manager, and asked her to become involved. And she assured me that she would be contacting one of her employees, and they would be doing more extensive testing. I think that you and I, as well as everyone, is in agreement that what we have to do from this point forward is do things correctly so that we know what the safety issues are, and really that is what we're talking about, are safety issues for children. And try to look at fixes for those safety issues. And please don't be discouraged just because this test came back the way it is.
Unfortunately, I'm very passionate. It was 2 full-time years of my life.
That's not an unfortunate thing.
I know. And so, yes, I am very passionate about this,
Yes.
as is the very handful of people that we have representative tonight. But I think, perhaps what needs to be stated publicly is that there would not have been an arsenic problem had this park been maintained correctly, which meant that it needed to be sealed every single year from when it was built. The original concern began in 2000 with the chemically treated wood, and in 2002, the EPA had some safety concerns. By 2003, the playground community quit using the wood voluntarily. They were not ever demanded to quit using it, and by 2006 the EPA actually stated that it was safe enough to continue to use pressure-treated lumber. So for the public who doesn't know the arsenic information and perhaps doesn't have time to research and understand, I think those are some of the things that need to be stated publicly. That one, perhaps, I'm very, very concerned right now that there's a public comment out there that Kids Cove is unsafe and that these children have been playing on this playground in an unsafe environment for many years. I know as a parent I would be terrified of hearing that at the moment. So, yes.
Would you educate me? You said the committee. Is there a special committee that represents Kids Cove, and how did that come about?
We reconvened. We actually found out by accident that Carter Rooster House had been, I don't know if he'd been granted permission or there was just suddenly going to be a new playground in the Kids Cove area. And so the original committee reconvened and to see if we could save it and make sure that the community remembered what it was. It's very easy to assume that it's just a wooden playground that's over there. There are over 700 memorials on site. And so I feel pretty strongly about making sure that it's protected.
So this committee was
So this committee is made up.
years ago?
We have actually been together almost 20 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and we've reconvened to try to protect the playground if we can.
And then, how did you decide who's on the committee? Just people that wanted to join?
At this point, the committee is made up of the original committee members. We had an original committee of 20, and we have 5 of those members are back on board to save the playground. I imagine we'd have a few others, but they held lesser roles in the original committee. So I was the fundraising coordinator. Ellen is the children's committee. She was fully responsible for babysitting children for about 1.5 years. We had children from all the community came every single month. to the Civic Center to give ideas and to work together with her to keep educating the kids that this was their playground and they designed it and they were going to have it. And then she babysat about 3,000 children over the course of a week while the parents built the playground. So, you know, that's her role. We had a lot of different committee chairs.
I think it's very cool what you guys are doing. I think it's very
Thank
cool.
you. But we are back together.
As I remember the construction process, there was a lot of us that weren't under the guidance of the babysitters that were having a lot of fun playing while the construction was being done too. And
So you were having fun and you put your wife to work, is what you're saying?
I don't think I remember seeing my wife in wheelbarrow, but I'm pretty sure that I was there. But, you know, there were a lot of, you know, I think the reference was made, 2,600 volunteer people put in time to construct this thing. We need to acknowledge the contribution by our community to our community. And, you know, if we somehow or another have been lax in making sure that the maintenance is done, you know, for that, we have to take responsibility. And, you know, I hope that this playground can be restored and retained, and it's going to be a matter of whether or not, you know, all of that comes out. And, you know, we at this point, I think probably the right thing to do is to, until we know exactly what the environmental assessment is to stop. And the best thing to do with that is to protect anyone from going there, close the playground. We will move forward as quickly as to expedite the necessary testings to make sure that we're good. And I would hope that, you know, between David and the Parks Committee, we will determine whether or not the engineering analysis by the company that was involved in the original construction would benefit us to do that as soon as possible. No.
So am I
God knows
understanding
there's
that you are making the suggestion that perhaps we could have Leathers come back in and reevaluate it? Is that what
I'm
you were
going to
suggesting?
defer that to the county administrator.
Okay.
The Parks Board.
To the Parks Board.
You mean to the Parks Board,
To the
right?
Parks Board.
Here it goes. Got a Parks Board. Use it.
Parks Board.
Parks Board.
I do want to back up too, because I know that something was stated publicly. Sorry, I know Elisa is behind me pulling faces, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Sorry, Elisa. Sorry. Had it not come up on public comment, I wouldn't have said anything. Thanks. It was stated last month that we were talking about going back in and putting, that we were requesting structural engineer reports be done and some very expensive cost measurements. I did need to clarify that is not what the committee had asked for. We actually have asked for Leathers to come back in and give us a structural report, which will be far less expensive than hiring a private engineer and bringing them back. So that's all I have, unless anyone else has comments for me.
Thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
other comments in regard to Kids Cove? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, I'm Michelle St. Amant, and I wanted to clarify, first of all, that I was not part of the original committee. I can't take any due for anything that happened, but I did have a child, Andre Christ, who is multiply challenged, had autism, scoliosis, and a severe seizure disorder, and he delighted in playing at Kids Cove for 7 years with me. We ran around together. It was a fabulous place for him and a really great outlet, and I'm so thankful for the original committee members. And I got involved as a support person because I feel that it's so important to our community. And I thank you for your continuing to stay open-minded and work with the original committee. Thank you.
David, do you want to make any other comments in regard to Kids Cove at this time, or we're just going to move forward?
No, like I said, we are waiting for the DEQ to give us some ideas on what we should do to remediate. We're also waiting for a little bit more information about the soils and where things are. Separate the two, organic and the inorganic
And I'm
arsenic.
assuming the Parks Commission is also moving forward with this project?
Yes, and you're welcome. Our last meeting was 4 hours, and I'm sure our next meeting is going to be at least that long, so please join us.
Sure.
But we are sure hoping that it's a maintenance issue and not a major capital improvement problem.
Charlie?
I think we all agree with that. The point is, these are assets owned by the community, 2,600 people. We're not sealing it when we should have been sealing it. We need more attention placed on taking care of what we do for the public. It's their stuff. Now we're in a situation where it's closed. Some of it may have to come down, whatever, some remediation possibly.
You might want to call our former Parks Director and ask him about that, Commissioner Rennie.
To talk about individuals,
we're not going into
Chris.
that
That's not
discussion.
what I do. I'm talking about the situation and how the public perceives this and what they see.
I know what was not done.
I know it wasn't done either. That's why we're sitting here. That's the question. Why?
Okay. Let's, we can't do anything about what wasn't done. What we can do is move forward from here, please. All right, are there any other notices? We have no purpose for a closed session?
I have a notice.
Oh.
The Parks Board did, as was noted, ask that I waive the requirements of the job description to require a person with a Parks and Recreation degree, and ask that I appoint Chris Erickson to the job of Parks Director. And I am willing to go along with that. I don't have any problem with Chris Erickson. I think she's a good manager. She's shown that she's a good communicator, and the Parks Board wants her. So unless I hear strong objections from my board, I'm going to do just that.
Wow, good.
Excellent.
Charlie?
Did we not pass a resolution agreeing with the Parks Board that we wouldn't hire someone until the January 2015?
We said that we would defer to their recommendation,
And we've made one,
I believe.
a solid one.
Did we pass that resolution or not?
No.
We never passed that. They said we would go along with what the Parks Board said. I will pull that up.
I don't recall that happening.
Okay, well, I'll bring it to the next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are we adjourned?
Larry?
Well, I just wanted, just as a side remark that is related or unrelated to this particular situation, you know, I went to school and got a four-year degree in law enforcement and with a minor in pre-law, and when I graduated, there was
Still a violator.
Yeah. I'm just giving you an example, okay? You know, the job market for those degrees were slim to none. And I interviewed at Empire National Bank, never took one accounting class, never took one banking class. And I got interviewed and got hired, and things worked out just fine. So, you know, the fact that someone has a degree tells me they have the ability to learn, communicate, and most likely do a great job. And if they need some supplemental education during the process, then that would be an opportunity for them. But I don't think that every job requires a specific degree in order to do that job. Just my personal opinion.
I think the administrator has the right to hire anyone he wants. I'm not
Yes.
saying that. That's not what we're talking about here.
Right.
But how about putting something in there with that to say, if you got this job and this degree is recommended, while you're working that job, go get that degree. Do it in process. Do something to show that, hey, and I'm complying or trying to comply with what the requirements are. I don't hear anything about that.
She has a
I worked
master's.
at private, I think you're out of order,
You're right, I am.
big time. I've worked in private industry. We make special decisions like that all the time, but there are always caveats with them to comply. There's more than one employee at the county. We have to look out for all the employees at the county. And when you do special treatment like this, I believe it causes morale issues and stuff like that. I think we could do some things through the administrator to make this hire possible, but I think there should be some other stipulations with it that people could say, yeah, that makes sense, other than just, we like this person.
Yeah.
That's not enough.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Dan?
I support your decision to hire Christine Erickson. I think she's excellent. It's a good decision, I think.
All right, no further notices. We have no need for a closed session. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
moved.
All gone. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
No further nonsense, that's what he heard.
Carry that up.
I heard that, didn't you hear that?
Okay, I gotta talk to her about that.
Hey, Max. Well, I had a setback on my foot. I got, after I had surgery. Yeah,